Hi, I'm Phil Berman from Balance Catamarans, and I'm often asked by people, well, what kind of sails do I need for my cruising catamaran? And my answer is always that it's rather dependent upon where you're sailing, what type of voyaging that you're doing. For example, with Screechers, I tell people if you'll be sailing in the Caribbean a lot, you don't need a very big Screecher. If you're going to be voyaging, saying on the eastern seaboard of the United States or in the Mediterranean, getting a larger Screecher sometimes makes a lot of sense. But let me just talk briefly about what we think at Balance Catamarans most of our couples are going to carry on their boats. Obviously, you have your main and your jib, and almost all of our boats carry a Screecher. Some people call it a code zero. We call it a Screecher because we tend to like a slightly heavier fabric, about 4.5 to 5.5 ounces, so that sail can be used to sail relatively close to the wind in light air before the head stay distortion gets too extreme and you have to crack off. So it makes it a very versatile sail, and for most cruisers it makes sense to have a big Screecher because of the versatility of the sail and the durability and the ease of deployment, as opposed to an asymmetrical spinnaker. An asymmetrical spinnaker attaches off the bowsprit as well, but if you're only going to carry one spinnaker, we tend to recommend that you get a Screecher and a symmetrical spinnaker and not an asymmetrical spinnaker. An asymmetrical spinnaker, to sail it properly, you have to be keeping the apparent wind relatively at 90 degrees. So anytime you get a gust, you drive the boat down. When the wind lightens, you head up, because the idea of the asymmetrical is to squeeze the most out of the boat. Tacking downwind is probably not something that the vast majority of cruising sailors really want to do, particularly if they're short-handed. It's hard at night to sit there and be piloting your boat to perfection, which doesn't mean, of course, that if you've got a beautiful reaching day and you're on a perfect beam course, that having an asymmetrical spinnaker up and say light winds would be maybe higher performance, obviously, than a Screecher. But we think if you're just going to carry a few sets of sails, that it's better to get the Screecher, use that for most of your reaching applications, and then get a relatively small symmetrical spinnaker for those dead downwind legs where you really don't want to be tacking downwind, piloting the boat. Something you can set and hold in really strong winds, tack off to the bow, and which is really pretty much going to take care of itself. A super easy sail. Have a sock on that sail. The question then becomes, if you have those four sails, do you need to get a storm jib? And I would say that for the people that are sailing our boats, truly blue water, crossing the South Pacific, going to extreme latitudes, having a storm sail is obviously a pretty good idea. Although I would say that in my yacht sails over the years, I think as of a few months ago, about 900 catamarans we've sold. Almost every time I go to a survey, there's a beautiful storm jib folded up that's never actually come out of the bag. Because I think what happens in practice for most people is that if it's really that bad, they just drop all their sails and hove to, and not necessarily use that sail to be piloting their boat to windward or sailing fast off wind with just this tiny little sail. But it is a nice thing to have. On some of our larger boats, a 52 and up, people will get a staysail, so that when you start going to windward and say winds 18 knots plus, when you've taken the first reef into your main and you're about to take the second, having a slightly smaller jib bounces the boat out better for that really serious upwind sailing. But again, most of our customers aren't. I would say some choose that, but not all of them. The most critical thing that I try and explain to people about sails and multi-hull sails is that a Dacron, standard Dacron sail, what we call a crosscut Dacron sail, in my opinion, is really only suitable and appropriate for charter boats, for boats where people really honestly don't care about performance. They want the lowest cost sail, a durable sail, but a low cost sail. The problem with Dacron, crosscut Dacron sails, is that they don't have the stretch resistance in all directions required to hold a really nice pocket in the sail, a really nice shape. And so none of our customers on our boats have ever gotten Dacron sails, to be honest with you. We have to advertise them in the base price because all the other builders do, but frankly, it's not appropriate for the type of boats that we build. So then you end up with a lot of different types of fabrics. And the thing that many consumers don't understand is that the moment you get off of a Dacron sail and you can go to a fabric that can be cut in a pie shape, what we call a radial fashion. If you have a sail that's cut in a radial fashion, and particularly mains and jibs, you're going to get 90% of the performance benefits over a Dacron sail instantly. And so then what you have to think about is, okay, there's a wide range of high-end fabrics that you can choose from that allow the sail to be cut in a radial fashion. You can spend pretty big sums of money to have, sails that are almost all carbon or lots of carbon in them, and there's many different types of high-end sails for racing applications or just high-performance applications. The question for a performance voyager is, I'm not racing, but I want to have nice performance. What's going to offer me the best value, durability, and performance? And what we've been working on at Balance in the last year with Ullman is we're working with a new fabric which nobody is actually using yet. It's special to us, proprietary at this point. And it's a fabric we're calling ASDL. It's got a really nice looking gray to it. If I do a nice up close, and I'll also show some pictures of it. What's great about this fabric is that it's got Technora yarns that are running through it in a pattern up the sail. It's a beautiful gray color, semi-transparent looking, but then it has a gray taffeta on the outside to protect those aramid fibers from UV. That's one of the issues whenever you're using a lot of, whether you're using Technora or Kevlar or things like that. Those strings are what give the shape that rigidity. And when you're getting into the larger mainsails on multi-hulls, it becomes really important to have great rigidity because the sail is under a lot of load because the boat isn't heeling. And when it gets hit by a gust, the sail is just sitting there. And if it's a Dacron sail, typically what happens is the pocket that they designed at 35% shifts back to 40% or 45% and the leech bags off and your performance is just shot. Whereas when you use this type of fabric in a radial fashion that's really stiff, you're going to get really nice performance. And when you're trying to sail a boat close to the wind, the shape of the sails become really important. So the main and the jib, the primary main and jib, having really great shape is pretty vital. So the upgrade that we're offering at Balance for 2020 and 2021 is this new proprietary product. We're calling it Blue Water Performance Radial. It's our own fabric that we're working on with Ullman Sails and Dimension Polyon. For those who are looking for a sail that's the most durable, long-lasting, pretty bulletproof, there's a fabric called Hydronet. Hydronet it's a white color fabric. I'll do a nice close-up to it. And it's a tightly woven product with high-tech yarns in it, and it really holds up its shape. It doesn't have a taffeta on it. So it's not subject to getting mildew in between the layers, which is going to happen with any taffeta sail. And it's kind of the sail of choice for world voyaging racers. A lot of the round the world boats are using this Hydronet product. It tends to be really expensive. It is expensive, but we will build our sails in that. I suppose the biggest drawback to it is when you look at it, it doesn't have nearly the sex appeal of this. the sails look really, really beautiful with the gray fabric and that sort of thing. And so, especially with our balance boats where you've got the beautiful painted hulls and gray sails, they really look quite cool. So those are the two, other choices that we have. And then the last choice, I shouldn't say the last choice, but another choice, and we built a lot of our boats with this fabric. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's called Fiber Path. The Fiber Path sail is a sail that a big film is laid down on the floor of the loft, and there's a machine that's got the Dacron high-tech line, Dacron carbon lines, and all the loads of the sail it's laying down with glue onto this pattern. The fibers required to offer the sail the rigidity exactly where it needs it. And so when you look at those sails and on our Balance Cats that are done, you just see all these lines swirling around. In some areas they're really, really heavy, like at the leech and at the clew, and they are there to give that sail the right strength, but it doesn't add a lot of weight. And so those sails tend to be really light. They're semi-transparent. They're really beautiful. The drawback to those sails is that they're less expensive than Hydronet, but their durability is considerably less. They really are a super high performance sail. And I think for most of our customers, the durability of the performance radial that we're doing now is probably a slightly better choice if they're going to be doing a lot of voyaging. But Ullman does a really fantastic job with these Fiber Path sails. When you I should say that the new fabric that we're working on, because it's got these aramid fibers in it, is really appropriate for the Balance 482, 526, 620 and up. The new 442 that we're doing, the mainsail isn't as large and the boats are not nearly as heavy as the other ones. The other boats are, bigger boats. So the sails on the bigger boats are subjected to higher loads. And so on the 442, our recommended upgrade fabric is called DCX. DCX is also a sail with a taffeta, and it's got some nice yarns in it, but it's not using aramids. It's a polyester fabric, but it can carry the loads on the 442 mainsail. So I'll show you a picture of that up close, what it looks like. It's got a light gray color and a lot of little squares in it, and it's quite attractive sail. And obviously it comes in at a little bit lower price point than the products that we're using for the main and jib on the 482 and the 526. However, you can opt to get the ASDT performance radial that we're working on if you wish. It's a slightly higher cost because it has the aramid fibers in it. So when it comes to Screechers or Code Zeros, the name seems to be interchangeable for people. I've grew up racing beach cats and tornadoes and things like that, and the Screecher was a sail that was kind of invented by Randy Smythe, who was an absolutely fantastic tornado racer, a friend of mine from California in the old days. The idea of the Screecher, is to have a slightly heavier fabric than on a Code Zero, so that you can take the sail up to 60 degrees, maybe 55 degrees in really light air and still carry it to windward. And then as the wind builds and you sheet it out, you can carry it into higher and higher wind ranges as you fall down the sailing circle. So the sail gives you a lot of versatility of ranges in which it performs very, very nicely. And so it's become quite popular with those of us in catamarans and voyaging catamarans. On our boats, we have a standard size Screecher that we feel is appropriate for most people, most wind ranges. But for those who are operating in say, consistently heavier environments, we might suggest they get a slightly smaller one. And for those that are going to be consistently operating in really light environments, like take Southern California, the Mediterranean, it's probably better for us to go ahead and build you one that's slightly bigger. We're quite flexible that way. We want to optimize the performance of our boats, for our customers. The fabric that we're using for the The Screechers is a little bit different than the others because many of these fabrics that are used for mains and jibs are only available in like heavier ounce cloths. And for the Screecher, you know, you're looking at that 4 to 5.5 ounce range. So the fabric that we've been using is called a CZ fabric. Here's a picture, or you can see maybe up close. This is what's called CZ90. CZ90 is obviously, you can see that it's got the aramid yarns in it, carbon yarns or Kevlar. And it's really nice because it's got a smooth surface, so it furls really well. It's really nice for furling. We use, the fabric comes in a lot of different weights. So on the Balance 526, we do it in what's called CZ90, and it comes in this color, or also in kind of a gray, or a more of a silver kind of gray. And then on the 482 or the 442, we can use the CZ60. So what you can see is different is there's fewer filaments running through the sail. And once again, this depends upon the loads of the boats that we're talking about. It's a great fabric, but you can use a lot of different fabrics. And the one thing I say about Screechers is that everybody, for the most part, on these boats, I would say particularly for the 442, 482, 526, people want to leave their Screechers up most of the time, unless they're pounding to weather for a long time, just because it's easy and you don't have to deal with much. So we're always going to make them with a UV cover, and so you can pretty much leave them out there on the bowsprit and furl them and unfurl them and power your boat up and power it down, you know, as you need. So it's important to get a fabric that's going to hold up, that's pretty durable. The thing with Screechers that's really important to understand is that if you get a really racing type Screecher, it's not going to have a UV cover on it, and it's typically going to be a relatively not a long-lasting sail. And so you pretty much have to drop it and stow it every time you're using it and hoist it back up. And I find that for most of our customers, and I know for me myself, out sailing with my wife Ann, we don't want to deal with that. So we're always going to put a UV cover around them so that they can, you know, so they can pretty much stay on the bowsprit most of the time. The only time you'd really take it down is if you're having to pump to windward and you don't want the windage of that thing. And what I do is I just drop the Screecher like a sausage and lay it down the deck and attach it to the stanchions rather than even stow it. It gets wet, so what? When I'm not sailing to windward, I hoist it up, unfurl it, dry it out, no issues. My joke is the law of sloth and torpor wins the day. Stay in balance and see you next time.